Hey, what's up? This is Zack here at the Genzio Media House, Austin, with another amazing team building with the Algorand Foundation. I'll let him introduce himself. Super excited to be here today with you.
Yeah, very excited to be here. My name is Devan. I'm part of the Algorand Foundation. I'm the head of ecosystem partnerships. And yeah, very excited to be here in Austin at Consensus and speaking with you today.
David, thank you so much. So can you maybe because we're gonna have you and Hadman, can you maybe break down just as we kind of kick off sort of how maybe you both work together?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So I sit within the ecosystem growth team, looking after partnerships, which is a very broad term. So it may be helpful just to break down specifically, what my team focuses on. And that's really three parts. One is making, Algorand more accessible to, both retail and institutional users. So that might mean, making sure that algos and ASAs are available at the major exchanges, the major trading venues, available on the relevant custodians, wallets, etc. So it's kind of behind the scenes to make sure that when people want to interact with the Algorand ecosystem, they can easily access the assets that they need to, and then deploy them within the ecosystem in a very seamless way. The second part is more around reach and making sure that our projects and the ecosystem reaches the relevant audiences that we need to. So that might be institutional, that might be retail users through education platforms, analytics platforms, basically making Algorand available through the venues where people consume their news, or they stay up to date with what's happening in Web3 and crypto. And then lastly, it's really working hand in hand with the projects in our ecosystem to understand what type of integrations and infrastructure they need in order to build, deploy, and scale apps on the Algorand ecosystem. So that may be, hey, we need embedded wallets, we need on and off ramps in this region. It's understanding the needs, going out and trying to make those partnerships happen so that builders can focus on building apps rather than going out and trying to plug Algorand into the infrastructure that they need to make that happen.
I think that's really key, and I want to kind of dive into the different pieces that you just talked about there. So first, kind of getting into the different sorts of, you mentioned news and making sure, can you explain like a bit more what you mean by that?
Uh, Absolutely. So I think in Web3 and crypto, it is so difficult to stay on top of what's happening, right? And potentially, if you're following the Algorand ecosystem, you might be up to date pretty in a pretty short fashion around the updates that are happening in Algorand, whether that's Python being added, whether that's what's happening with Lofty and TravelX. But if you're not uh, an Algorand follower, say you're not subscribed on Twitter, or you don't follow Stacy or John, like how do you keep up to date with Algorand? And I think the realization is that different audiences consume news in different ways, right? So if you're a retail user, potentially you're going through one of the education platforms where you want to discover new projects, new protocols, understand what they're about, interact with them, maybe get rewarded in some way. Or if you're an institution, there are a number of different platforms where institutional users may go to keep up to date with what's happening in Web3. And the news that goes out, or the content that goes out through these platforms, is different because they are targeting different audiences. And so part of what we're focusing on this year is understanding what are those key audiences, where are the platforms where they consume news, where they get updates, where they make decisions, and making sure that we're visible there. There are a couple that we will be able to announce hopefully very shortly, maybe even
Any
ahead
hints? No, like,
of maybe ahead of Decipher, or at Decipher, maybe we'll be able to share some names. But we've made some great headway there, and I think people will be excited when they hear some of these things that are coming up.
awesome. Can you talk a little bit about why you think Algorand is seeing this sort of adoption right now? Like, obviously there's more devs building. Do you think that's just like an awareness thing, or sort of what would you kind of contribute to that?
Yeah, so I think part of it is definitely just the macro trend, and the legitimacy of digital assets and crypto as a place to build your assets, to build your projects, and where the next wave of innovation is happening. So like it would be naive to say all this growth on Algorand is just Algorand. It is partly macro, but then I think we've made a big effort to make it easier to build on Algorand. John, our CTO, announced native Python abilities on Algorand, which is huge, bringing in a large influx of Web2 developers who maybe thought there was a large barrier to coming and developing Web3 applications. Now can use the language that they're comfortable with, can use the tools that they're used to using to build apps in the Web2 space. So that brings a lot more developers in. And then I just think the maturity of this space in general plays to some of Algorand's strengths, right? I think Algorand with an instant finality and built to support scale really suits what's happening in this wave. No longer is it little projects that are looking to experiment. There's big institutional companies building real projects that need millions of transactions, which can't afford a second of downtime, every month because, there's millions of dollars riding on it. So as these use cases on blockchain require scale and reliability and, the ability to code in Python, that plays into some of the strengths that Algorand has and is really testament to the work that we did during the bear market to kind of prepare for where we are now in the macro sense.
And sort of in your role, like what does like the day to day look like? Are you working with different projects or what does that look like?
On a day-to-day basis? Yeah, so I mean, there's different parts of it, right? So if we go back to what the team's focusing on in making sure that the assets are accessible in the right venues, it's staying on top of where those venues are, right? Because I think in every cycle, almost every month, there are different relevant exchanges, trading platforms, wallets. So big part of it is staying on top of what are those new up and coming exchanges, what are those new trading venues, what are those new wallets, and proactively reaching out to them, right? I think, and saying, well, how can we make Algorand, Algo, the stable coins on Algorand supported within these venues? So it's a large part of it is understanding where the market is going, being very proactive about reaching out to those partners, and then working through what those partnerships might look like in order to bring support to their platforms. And that might be aligning incentives in the long term. There's often a chicken and egg problem here where platforms will say, well, what is the demand for this from the Algorand ecosystem? And it's hard to give that answer because, well, the integration's not there yet. So we don't know exactly what the demand for it will be. So it's working through with these partners how to align incentives and solve that chicken and egg problem, evangelize Algorand, bring them up to speed with the projects to, get them on board and be part of that journey on Algorand.
And, for yourself specifically, when you're talking to these different ecosystems or something, what are they saying when they're saying, like, why are people coming to learn about the asset? Like, what is drawing people in or, learn about Algorand, I guess? Like, what is kind of the things that make people want to learn more when they first hear about it?
Algorand, I think it has pretty good name recognition. It has
True.
been, one of the leading layer ones since it launched in 2019. I think the origin story, and obviously our founder Silvio Micali and some of the amazing things that he's done around, inventing and basically bringing some of these primitives that this whole industry is built on. Being a co-inventor of zero knowledge proofs, of verifiable random functions, a lot of these things that are used across the industry. The fact that Silvio built them and then built Algorand is a natural point of curiosity. People intuitively want to know more about Algorand when they hear that fact. And then it's really the cool use cases that are being built on Algorand. I think you and Min talked about Lofty AI and their exponential growth, and they're getting quite a bit of media attention. And what is interesting about Web3 is that consumers almost as curious about the app and the underlying tech, right? Like no one cares about what tech Uber's built on. Like that's not a part of the interest to them when they hear about Uber or when someone discovers Uber. But when someone hears about Lofty or TravelX, they're naturally interested in what blockchain that's built on. And I think that's quite unique to Web3, that people are interested about that infrastructure layer. And so it's a testament to some of the great projects that are built on Algorand, because that flows down to interest about the layer one and the amazing things that Algorand is doing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the interview, and look forward to seeing more of you soon.
Amazing. Thanks, Zach. Look forward to seeing you in Barcelona in about a
Oh, it's
month's
going to
time.
be fun. I can't wait.
Let's catch up then.
Cheers.
Bye.